This week I learned that, hey, you're having a hard time making it through that large epic fantasy book? Easy solution is just pick up another large epic fantasy book. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. It's about halfway point of September here. We're headed closer and closer to spooky season, guys, but lots of fun things to talk about this week. But that's always going to begin with what am I reading? I did start reading Blackest Heart. This is Brian Lee Durfee's second book in the Five Warrior Angels. I got about almost to the halfway point, and I don't want people to get this mixed up here. I still think this is very good. I think I was just starting to get to a point where I was like, I feel like I'm kind of hitting one of those ruts with fantasy, and maybe I need to kind of take a break for a second because, it's not as much of a page turner I think as Forgetting Moon is, because this one is very clearly building and building and building, and it feels like it's getting to that point where it's about to really, really pop off. So I don't want anybody to take that as me saying that I'm not enjoying this as much as I did the first one. I did like the first one better so far, but guys, I mean, like I said, not even the halfway point. There's plenty still to go here, and I'm confident that Brian's going to get there. I'm very, very confident in that. I just said, hey, maybe I need to take a break from that for a minute and see maybe what else is going on. So my solution was, well, why don't you finish that other giant, large, epic fantasy book that you were working on, that reread of Clash of Kings. Now with this, the difference is, guys, is I know this world inside and out. I've done this story several times before, but I am very much enjoying my reread of it. So I started reading that last month, so I said, hey, why don't I go ahead and pick it up, because after I finished Fairy Tale and things like that, I started writing The Blackest Heart before I actually did finish this. So I think a big part of that also is just when you feel like you've got 2 or 3 books going at a time, which I can do, no problem. But when they're 2 very large cast books like this and like Blackest Heart are, maybe let's just finish one, and it'll kind of feel like you cleared some of the cache from the brain a little bit, I think. So with this guys, I love this as much as always on a reread. I think those first 3 books in this series are 5-star books without a doubt. With this one, I remembered most of it. About the only thing is there was like a couple of things, and this is out of context, guys. You aren't going to know what I mean by this, so don't worry about it being spoilery. About the only thing that really surprised me on this reread was I had forgotten some things that happened with Ramsay Snow in this book. So that was fun, like kind of remembering that. So always fun new things to pick up on a reread, especially if it's been over a decade plus, and then you have something as popular as that show was, which may have actually kind of confused my brain canon a little bit from from the books and stuff. So a lot of fun to revisit that world. Storm of Swords, I don't imagine. The back half of this year, I got a lot of things I want to do. We don't really have room for rereads right now. So, I think I won't be getting into Storm of Swords till sometime next year. But between now and then, I will get to my individual reviews of A Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings. So I'm excited to do that, because there's no better time, I think, than when people are really getting interested in this world again due to the success of House of the Dragon, which might come up more than once this episode. But sometimes you do need a break from fantasy, right, guys? At least I do. And I always say I like to throw in a thriller or something, maybe science fiction, maybe something horror in there. And I said, how about something that's all those things? And that, of course, is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, one of the greatest books ever written, guys. This is the first time I'm revisiting this in a while. And I think here's the thing, is it's going to sound ridiculous, because I think with this book and with 1984 and with Brave New World, everybody that reads it says, oh, this is so, it's not speculative fiction anymore. We're living in these times. People have been saying that since these books were released, so of course you're going to feel like that. However, with those 3 books, this is always the one that I say, this is the one that feels very, very similar to some things that are going on with like big media platforms and things like that. That's as much as into as I'm going to get, guys. Don't worry, because I don't want to start that shitstorm. But this is a very, very important book, I think, to read for us to realize, the written word is super important. And when you start seeing things like banned books or, heaven forbid, a book burning and stuff, this really will make you say, how far away from that are we? It can really happen, it seems like, overnight. So it's a scary book, but I think it's a very informative book that everyone should read, just to see, hey, this is not a future that we want to live in, And I think it starts with a very simple strike of a match, right? And it can turn into a giant blazing inferno. And I think that's why Ray Bradbury was ahead of the curve on everything that he talked about. And Ray Bradbury is just one of the greatest writers of all time, in my opinion. He's one of my favorite authors ever. And anytime I get to revisit this or something wicked, it's a great, great experience for me. But yeah, I've read this book more than anything else he's ever written. I was going to do Dandelion Wine because I've never actually done Dandelion Wine. And I know that book would be my jam probably because it's one of my favorite authors ever, writing in my favorite subgenre ever, the coming of age tale. But I just saw it and I was like, I haven't read that in a while, and now feels like the right time to revisit it. So short read, guys. I'm just reading a little bit before bed each night. And the thing is with this is you'll start, I don't want to say speculating, because it is a very speculative book. Speculative fiction is what it's actually filed under. But it is kind of a thing that'll make you think. It's something that'll make you research stuff. So it's one of those where you can kind of take your time with it and kind of break down each phrase that he's saying in here. Because his writing style is beautiful, but there's so much he's saying between the lines in this book. And I could talk about this book the whole episode, and I realize that's what I'm doing right now. But a great book, guys. Please pick it up. It is very, very... It's not this big political thing that everybody tries to make it out to be, guys. But it is a very important book for us to read, just like 1984 is. It's something I think everyone should read. And that's why I talked about it in those classic books that I love. And if you can tell, I do love this story. And I do love Mr. Ray Bradbury, one of the greatest of all time to do it. But that's what I've been reading this week, guys. I'm going to continue with that. So how about what am I going to read? Well, I do think that maybe I should finish these 2 books that I'm working on first, right? I'll do that. I'll be working on Blackest Heart before I really continue anything else. Like I said, the Ray Bradbury just kind of staying on my nightstand. I'll read like a chapter or just a section or 2 before I go to bed each night. That's nothing that's super important, and it's something that I like to take my time with. But I do want to kind of do Jade Setter of Janlu. Like I said, it turns out I guess I'm not going to do that before I talk to Fonda Lee, because I'm doing that tomorrow. So it's not going to happen before then. But I still like to do it because I did very much enjoy the Greenbone saga and that world she created. But after Blackest Heart, I'll be getting into The Wolf's Hour by Mr. Robert McCammon, and that's going to kind of be the lead-in to spooky season. I did include it on my spooky season video I made recently, and a lot of comments are, it's a great book, but it's not horror. That's why I said it in September, guys. I think a good werewolf story will lead us in to October and the horror in the spooky season. Although there are a couple on there people said they wouldn't really call horror either, but you get this all the time with horror, guys. Everyone will say, that's not horror. I mean, there's people who tell me Anne Rice isn't horror. So, I mean, it's one of those genres, I think, that everyone's kind of got their own definition of what horror is. So they won't actually say that anything is just horror. It's not horror. It's a gothic thriller or something. I mean, there's so many little things like that can be an argument, kind of like what is grimdark. It's one of those conversations that kind of happen in the horror genre. But I am excited to read more Mr. Robert McCammon because the first 2 books I read, Boy's Life, Swan Song, have just been all-timers for me. So I'm not expecting those heights. I don't think that should be the bar for everything I read for him, but I do think he's going to be an author that I end up probably reading just about everything that he's written before it's all said and done. Because he's scratched that itch that I need in my modern authors. And if you want to call him a modern author, I mean, the guy's been doing this for so long. I believe he actually retired once and came back. So I don't know if you really call him a modern author. A modern author, he's still writing. So would you call Stephen King a modern author? A modern author? That's a fun phrase to say, ain't it? How about this week on the channel, guys? I did do my spooky season plans, as I've talked about. This is just because for the month of October, I don't know what this is on my desk here, and it's really distracting me. And I know this just makes for great viewing stuff right now, isn't it? With spooky season, for the month of October, I just like to do horror books because, I've tried to balance the horror out. Doesn't do incredibly well on the channel, but I do say that in October is the time of the season where everybody can kind of get into a little bit of a spooky mood, right? So it's the best time, I think, to do some horror, do some read-alongs and things like that. So this is really just my plans of everything I plan to read in the month of October, the things that sadly didn't make it, the cut and things like that. And just to see if anybody wants to join me for any of them, but also just really to start the conversation, because for me, October is just a celebration of the horror genre. So I like to hear all those things. I started a spooky season channel on the Discord, and it's not just for the books that I'm reading, but it's anything horror that related that you're doing in October and you want to talk about it. Please join the Discord and come in and talk to us about it, because I love spooky season. I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, and I love the horror genre, and I love to talk about it. So it would be fun to talk more about it when other people are willing to talk back with me. That would be the best thing. So yeah, I released the list and all the links to all the books that I'm doing that month. If you want to join me on any of them, I'd love to have you. We did our Throne Zone episode number 4 of House of the Dragon. That was The King of the Narrow Sea. And yes, we are still very, very positive on that show. I think we've gotten to the point now where we're like, okay, I can't rank the episodes anymore because they've all 4 been great. But I think that's kind of how it goes with a show like that. Is you can rank, you start getting like 2 or 3, you can probably rank them, and then you start being like, okay, I've really enjoyed all of them. I'm going to keep ranking them each week. Probably not. But we all did really enjoy the episode. Definitely felt the most Song of Ice and Fire in that it was just so political and scheming. And that, to me, is what makes Song of Ice and Fire so much better than everything else. And that's why it's so much better than everything else on TV right now. I think after 4 episodes have been this good, I can safely say I feel like this is the undisputed best thing on TV at the moment. At least for me it is. It's gotten back to the point where it's Sunday and it's like, yes, it's Song of Ice and Fire Day, Game of Thrones Day, whatever you want to call it, House of the Dragon Day. It's very exciting times to be a fantasy fan, which I'll talk about a little more when we get into TV and movie talk. But I did also talk about Nothing with Mr. Nicholas Eames. He's the author of Kings of the Wild and the Bloody Rose and the upcoming Outlaw Empire. Really, really fun books if you guys haven't checked them out yet. I do have a review on the channel of Kings of the Wild. Great book, especially if you're a classic rock fan. And for you real young whippersnappers, that's 1970s guitar rock. That's what we really call it. But my generation, we just call it classic rock, 70s rock. So you don't have to know those things, but those Easter eggs are there if you want to find them. But definitely a refreshing spin on the fantasy genre that I really needed at the time I did read it. And Nicholas is just a great human being. We actually talked on the channel before. It's the second time he's been on the channel. We just talked about the book before, but this time I'm going to have him on for Talk About Nothing because we had so much stuff we wanted to talk about. Like after we got off the air last time, we just talked so much about everything except books, and it was a lot of fun. So I thought he was the perfect guest for a Talk About Nothing. And Talk About Nothing and something, well, we did. So ever the gentleman. And a really, really great guy to follow if you want to know how to mix some drinks. He can tell you how those work. But he's always welcome on the channel. I can't wait to talk to him again. Hopefully when Outlaw Empire is officially on its way. And then I finished up the week. My Return of the King review was a little delayed because of Rings of Power. But hey, these things happen, and like I said about the viewership numbers on those, I don't think anybody was really beating the door down. Those were kind of for me. I had always said I was going to wait and review Lord of the Rings books leading up to Rings of Power, and I did. So that's just kind of a notch on my own belt here. That's something that I had wanted to do because I love that series so much, and I had so much to say about them. And the whole thing about doing a non-spoiler, I know that not very many people have an interest in hearing someone talk non-spoiler about 70-year-old books. They're probably not super interested in that. But to me, if I've gotten even one more person to read Lord of the Rings, I've done my job. So I'm quite happy with that. And if Philip ever wants to come on and talk to me about Tolkien stuff, I'll try. I will try because, guys, I thought I knew a lot about Middle-earth until I saw him and AP talking about Rings of Power, and I was like, I know nothing, apparently. So, I didn't pass the bar, but I know a little bit when it comes to Lord of the Rings. So, if I want to talk some spoiler stuff, I would definitely do so with someone like Philip, who I feel like I would definitely be learning stuff along the way, and probably just looking more and more foolish. But like I said, I never pretend to know everything about that, but it is my favorite fantasy universe, and I do enjoy talking about it. How about some next week plans, guys? There will be Throne Zone number 5 on Monday. We'll be talking about the next episode, which I keep forgetting to look up the names of these episodes. I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is going to be where either the time jump happens or it happens between the next 2 episodes. So this is going to be our last episode with young Allison and Rhaenyra. Those actresses have both crushed it, and I'm really anxious now to see the adult versions of them. But I think Ryan Condal and his team, the casting director, have just showed that they've got this. They know what they're doing because there's not a single casting on that show I don't like. So I'm sure we'll have quite positive things to say about episode number 5 on Monday night. And again, guys, those are live, and we'd love it if you guys drop in and bring some comments, some theories, all those kinds of things. We will definitely talk about what you guys are talking about in the comments. We're not just going to be a recap show. We want to discuss this with you guys. So if you have the chance to catch those live, we would definitely appreciate if you could do that, because we love to talk to y'all. I love to see what you guys are thinking. It's because me, Scott, Madison, we're very, very close to source material. And I want to see, hey, are we just too close to it, or is it as good as we think it actually is? And so I appreciate that feedback from everyone. Interview with the author is coming back, like I've already kind of alluded to. I'm going to be speaking with Miss Fonda Lee tomorrow, but that'll be on the channel on Tuesday. But I got a lot of questions from you guys. I do appreciate you doing that, because it always keeps it from me just being like, hey, I really like Jade War. It would just be, I'm so bad at interviews that I feel like if you guys don't feed me some questions that you want me to ask her, I would have no idea. It would just turn into a talk about nothing, and I want to kind of talk to her about her books, about her plans, about her inspirations and things like that, as interview with the author kind of dictates, because in the end, it's I know that there's a lot of people who will never have the opportunity to ask an author some of these, a very major published author, some of these questions. So if I can get some of those answers for you guys, that's what I am here for. I'm a public servant in that regard. So excited to talk to her. She's been extremely friendly in emails, and I'm anxious to talk some Godfather with her. I mean Greenbone Saga with her. Speaking of the Godfather, guys, I think I am going to be doing another spoiler-free review for an old book, after I just said I wasn't going to do that anymore. I got to talk about the Godfather, because I think that book was just amazing, and I've got a lot of things I want to say about it. And at this point, that's kind of the things where Godfather almost seems like so pop culture at this point. I really don't know if I could spoil anything for you that you don't already know, because if you haven't seen The Godfather, you've seen those scenes recreated in The Godfather. I bet if you haven't seen or read The Godfather, I bet you know about the horse's head. I bet you know about make him an offer he can't refuse. I bet you know about take the gun, leave the cannoli. You know all these things just from like The Simpsons or something, parodying that movie and that book. So I don't know. Maybe that one will be kind of loosey-goosey with the plot. Maybe I'll talk a little more than I usually would. I'm not really decided. But I do want to talk about The Godfather, so I'll be doing that sometime next week. Then if I have some time, guys, I am going to be going back one more time to the world of the First Law. And this time it's going to be the question that I get the most about the First Law, and that is, do I have to read the standalone? So really it's a should you read the standalones kind of video. I'm going to present why I think you should, why I think it's okay if you skip them, and what you should come to expect of those books. So that was going to be Best Served Cold, it's going to be The Heroes, and Red Country. And I guess to a lesser extent, Sharp Ends, which is just a short story collection. But we'll talk about all 4 of those in that video, and if I think it's a good idea, depending on what you want or how much you are into the First Law universe, if that's something you think that you should do. So I'm excited to do that if I do have some extra time this week. How about some TV and movie talk before I go, guys? Cobra Kai 5. This continues to be the best written show on TV. I said I don't feel like there's anybody who does character arcs as good as them. They're just so satisfying, and they're so perfectly timed. Anytime I start to feel like, okay, I need them to come to a resolution with this arc very soon, they do it. I mean, these writers just know what they're doing. And to take a villain like Terry Silver, who was terrible in Karate Kid 3, and make him maybe even better than John Kreese has been on the show is just amazing. They decided to take Kreese out as the main villain and put Terry Silver in, and this might be the best season yet. That's amazing, amazing work. That writing team is just outstanding. That ensemble cast has so much chemistry together. They've hit a home run in every regard. And I think that anything that does these long past due sequels or continuations of a series, Cobra Kai should be the blueprint. This is how you do a show like this, and you present a likable next generation without disrespecting your legacy characters. And you keep the legacy characters as a major, major part of your plot. It shows the way it should have been done, and my God, I'll always make the comparison of I wish this had been the team that had wrote the Star Wars sequels, because I think we could have had something really, really special if we had. So Cobra Kai, guys, if you haven't watched yet, sure, it's corny, it's hokey, but it's got so much heart, and it's so much fun, and it is incredibly well written. It's amazing that they've done this 5 seasons now, and it feels like they just keep topping the season before it, which is spectacular. So yeah, guys, Cobra Kai, binge it if you haven't. It is worth every single second of your time. Rings of Power continues to be a mixed bag for me. I continue to say I don't feel like it's this big travesty that the rest of YouTube acts like it is, like it's just insulting that's even on the TV. I understand why those people are upset. Not bothering me so much. And here's the thing, guys. I went into it ready to hate it. I really, really did. So this isn't a Wheel of Time thing where I'm like, okay, I thought it was going to be garbage, and then it was like actually watchable for the first half. There's things that I really like. There's things I don't like. I love the stuff with Elrond and Durin and Khazad-dûm. I think that stuff's really good. I think the Numenor plotline, minus Galadriel's I need to speak to your manager plotline, I think that's really, really good. Numenor looks amazing. Everything about the show looks amazing. It really does, clearly. Like I said, most expensive show of all time. It better look amazing. The soundtrack is just slamming. Really, I don't care for the Harfoot section, and episode 4 did not have any Harfoots in it. So I thought it was the best episode yet. To me, it's like this isn't even on the same galaxy yet as like House of the Dragon. It's better than Wheel of Time. I'd say it's better than The Witcher too. I would, but to me, guys, it's like, okay, the female dwarves don't have beards. Yeah, that's annoying. There's elves with short hair. Yeah, that's kind of stupid. I got over it in like 3 minutes, and so I don't know. I felt like this episode showed that they actually do maybe have a plot in mind, because it has been kind of directionless a lot these first few episodes. That's why I feel like this show almost would have been better as a full season drop instead of the weekly thing. I think that probably would have helped it a little bit. But in the end, it's one of those things, if you went into this determined to hate it or determined to love it, that's how you're going to feel about it. If you went into it like me, where you're like, okay, I'm going to hope for the best but expect the worst, I think you might be pleasantly surprised. I don't know. It's the kind of thing that, I'll be honest, if it didn't say Lord of the Rings on it, would I keep watching? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. But for me, I love the fantasy medium, and I want to see more of it on my television. So, I like I said, I don't feel like this is just some big travesty or something like Legend of the Seeker or something like people are acting like it is. But I do 100% get if it isn't working for you. I mean, there's dialogue and writing moments that make me be like, how did that get past the writer's room? You know, I mean, I am doing that. But you know what? My kid's like speculating with me every single week and stuff. And to me, that's what it's all about. You know, so it's getting more people to pick up the Silmarillion. It's getting more people to pick up the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm excited for that. Again, if that's the only thing that comes out of it, terrific. But yeah, in the end, like I said, I don't think it's a travesty, but I also understand why there's people who just cannot with it. So there it is. Willow on Disney Plus does look quite good. And I trust Disney Plus about as far as I could throw this desk, which is not very far. I feel like Disney Plus, anytime they've had any kind of Disney Plus, anytime they've had any kind of sequel or continuation of something long past, it hasn't gone over well. It's been very disrespectful. It's a good trailer. It really is. That second trailer is really good. I had no idea that Sorsha was coming back. I had no idea the brownies were coming back. You see Bab Morda, like at least like some kind of form of Bab Morda. You see Willow's wand and all those things. So I mean, they're doing the right mix of nostalgia and also the new stuff looks really good. So with me, it'll come down to how do these new characters feel? Are you doing the Cobra Kai thing? Are these new characters going to be likable, but you're also going to make Willow Lovegood a major part of your plot and obviously the main character of your story? These are things I think that will be important. But yeah, it's a really great trailer. Right now, I'm hoping it's at least as good as like that Dark Crystal revival, which I thought was really, really good. And it's a shame I only got one season of that because it was really, really good. But I don't know. Fingers crossed. I'm be hopeful for that one. Hope they got some kind of mention of Mad Mardigan in there because Top Gun Maverick, I wasn't sure how they were going to do Iceman with Val Kilmer in the condition that he's in right now. Same with this. I wonder if they're going to have some kind of mention or, heaven forbid, maybe they recast him. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I don't imagine if they brought all those old actors back, if they're not going to have some kind of mention of what happened to Mad Mardigan, what happened to Elora Danan, what happened to these people. So it'll be fun to see the continuation, and I hope it's just at least respectful, to that original movie, which I've watched a billion times and just love to pieces. Before I go, guys, I got to do some gaming talk because we did get the reveal of the next Legend of Zelda game. Now, if you guys don't know, because I haven't talked about this a ton on the channel, Legend of Zelda is my favorite franchise in gaming. It's the reason I can never completely walk away from consoles. Now, we keep our Xbox One because we love Game Pass. We haven't gotten a PlayStation 5, and at the moment we have no interest to. And if you could, would you even do it? Because it's like you can hardly find them, and if you can, they're overpriced. And what games are you playing? Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a console war. Why I can't walk away from Nintendo is The Legend of Zelda. That is always going to be my favorite franchise in gaming ever since 1987, and It's Dangerous to Go Alone. Take this. I've always been a Zelda fan, unabashedly. It's been my favorite franchise since I first started playing it, and I was getting out the notepad and drawing maps and things like that, because we couldn't just look on our phone for a map, guys. We had to actually work on these games. And so it's just always been embedded in my DNA that Zelda is just my game. So every single time a new one comes out, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And with Tears of the Kingdom, which is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, I'm not sure. This trailer looks really, really interesting. Almost looks like it's almost like a sequel to Skyward Sword with the aesthetic of Breath of the Wild. So I'm not sure. I haven't dove into. I know there's lots of lore dives and stuff from this whole 30 seconds of gameplay that you see in the trailer. But guys, when Breath of the Wild came out, I was very resistant to it because I was like, Zelda without dungeons, that doesn't sound right to me. And it's like, it did have dungeons. They were just broken to 100 pieces, the way that they did it. And me and my wife became so obsessed with that game because my kids were really, really young at that point where they would go to bed at 7 o'clock at night. We were putting them to bed at 7 o'clock, and my wife and I were playing from 7 o'clock at night to 1 in the morning every single night. Even on work nights when Breath of the Wild came out, because we got so wrapped up in that. And I don't imagine this is going to be any differently. I've already told my kid, the Switch is going to be moved down to the living room so we can all play Tears of the Kingdom when it comes out. So it does have a release date, May 12th of next year. Very, very excited. And I don't know what else to say except, guys, it's Zelda. You had me at Legend of Zelda. Take my money. It's always going to be like that. The Game Boy one's kind of iffy, but all the console releases. Skyward Sword's my least favorite one, but you know what? My least favorite Zelda game is always better than other franchises' best game for me. So I'm very excited about this, and I will. Besides, I think God of War is the only thing else that I'm really, really anxious to play, on a day one kind of release. So that's it for me, guys. But I'm always going to be excited for a Zelda game because I will never be able to get enough of it. I don't care if it's the same story retold every single time. It's like a fairy tale to me in that regard. It's the same story. There's people who try to put a chronological timeline and all that. I'm just just give me Link, give me Zelda, give me some dungeons, give me an open world, and I'm going to have a great, great time with it. And that looks like what it's going to be. In fact, there's going to be 2 worlds. There's one in the sky and one on the ground. So exciting times ahead, guys. But that was my week. How did your week go, guys? Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments. Let me know what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're playing, what you're watching, all of these things and more, guys. And I will talk to you there.